Hello, and welcome to our National Girls Collaborative Project webinar, STEM Stories, Women's Experiences Advocating for Equity, where you'll be hearing from a panel of our NGCP Anniversary Fellows. I am so thrilled that you've joined us here today. My name is Amanda Sullivan, and I am the manager of our National Webinar Series here at NGCP. I just wanted to remind you that our webinar is being recorded, and a couple of housekeeping notes. If you wouldn't mind keeping yourselves muted, but there will be plenty of opportunity for you to ask questions in the chat. In fact, this webinar is really more of a discussion than a formal presentation. So there will be lots of opportunities for interactivity. In case you are joining us, and this is maybe your first time joining an NGCP webinar, we wanted to first give you a little bit of a brief overview about who we are at NGCP and what we do, and then we'll be getting into our webinar content with our speakers. So our vision at the National Girls Collaborative Project. Well, we are a national network of diverse stakeholders who are advancing the agenda of gender equity. We bring together organizations that are committed to informing and encouraging girls to consider STEM. As a network of networks, our reach is broad. The programs in our network serve 20 million girls. And because many of our programs also serve boys, that means we reach an additional 12 million boys as well. And NGCP has been doing this for 20 years. This is actually an exciting year for us. It's our anniversary year, hence our anniversary fellowship that you'll be hearing all about in just a few moments. But our vision is simply that we aim to support and create STEM experiences that are as diverse as the world that we live in. We want to create change, and our work empowers providers, educators, leaders, and youth themselves. You can see our goals, our 3 essential goals on screen here. We believe that STEM skills can be acquired by anyone and fostered in everyone. Our initiatives build confidence and create a community of lifelong STEM activators. Through the power of collaboration, we spark curiosity and develop a passion for STEM. We share resources and solutions with a coalition of leaders, and also via our website, newsletters, online databases, social media, and of course, webinars like this one. NGCP also strengthens the capacity of programs by sharing exemplary practices, research, and program models. When programs are stronger and more sustainable, girls and youth are better served. We distribute these resources in accessible ways, such as train the trainer programs and online platforms. And finally, we leverage our network of girls serving STEM programs, advocates, and youth so that together we can create the tipping point for gender equity in STEM. And I just wanted to share and highlight a few of our NGCP activities, and we'll be popping these in the chat in case these are resources or activities that you're interested in learning more about. So NGCP engages in many activities virtually and nationally, as well as through local collaboratives. NGCP partners with organizations to scale and deliver content, such as the Leap into Science National Network, in partnership with the Franklin Institute and the Million Girl Moonshot, in partnership with STEM Next and the Mott After School State Networks, serving hundreds of educators via local networks. Working with Lyda Hill Philanthropies, NGCP manages the If Then Collection, a digital library housing photos, videos, and other media of women in STEM fields. These media are great, really useful, and they're free for you to use at no cost. NGCP also hosts the Youth Advisory Board. Our Youth Advisory Board helps to review and provide feedback on current NGCP initiatives. And really what they do is help to assist in guiding the future direction of the work that NGCP does. FabFems is an international database of female role models from many STEM fields. They are passionate about the work that they do, and they're ready to connect with programs to spark girls' interests. So if you're interested in finding a role model to visit your program, this is a great database for you to look into. And lastly, I wanted to point out that we have state collaborative leadership teams that offer convenings, providing professional development, mini grants for innovative projects when there's funding available, and they also distribute their own newsletters spotlighting local resources that might be useful to you. You obviously know about our webinars because you're here joining us today. You might not know that we offer them monthly on a variety of topics to help our networks grow and thrive. And if you haven't yet signed up for our newsletter, this is a great first place for you to hear about what NGCP is doing, what our upcoming events are, and how you can get involved with some of our resources. But now it's my pleasure to get started with the content for today's webinar and turn it over to Kata Lucas to share with you a little bit more about our anniversary fellowship program and to introduce our speakers. Kata?
Thanks so much, Amanda, and thank you all for joining us today. As Amanda said, my name's Kata, and I'm lucky enough to be the manager of the fellowship program. As Amanda said, I'm just going to provide a brief overview of the program, and then we'll have plenty of time to hear from some of our fellows about their experiences during the course of the program. So the Anniversary Fellowship Program was developed really as an opportunity for professionals to immerse themselves in NGCP's equity-focused work and to support our national network of girl serving programs. And it's a new program this year, and we intentionally started it this year as really one way to celebrate our 20th anniversary year. And the program has three main goals that you'll see on the slide. We want to help fellows build and or strengthen their skill sets and also increase their knowledge around gender equity and culturally responsive approaches to STEM. And also based on their interests, we want to help them strengthen and or foster wide-ranging skills related to project management and collaboration. And also we aim to provide various opportunities for fellows to work with the NGCP team and our network. If you could go to the next slide, Amanda. And so the fellowship program, it's a 9-month program. It ends at the end of this month, at the end of November. And we had 7 fellows participate in the program this year. It's a diverse cohort in terms of background and experience. Some of our fellows are working in informal STEM education, some working in STEM fields, and others in graduate school. And really the core pieces of the program include equity to really provide fellows with the foundation of the research that grounds NGCP's work and how we aim to apply that research to practice. These trainings focused on gender equitable strategies for engaging girls in STEM and covered specific topics, including intersectionality, cultural responsiveness, STEM identity, and role models. And the other core piece of the program was project-specific work, where each fellow focused on a particular aspect of NGCP's work that was of interest to them and fit in with their schedule. And some of those projects include supporting our state collaboratives, work related to the If Then collection, supporting the Youth Advisory Board, resource collection for various knowledge products, and also supporting our annual survey. And finally, we aim to provide opportunities for the fellows to participate and or attend NGCP events. And I'll highlight one in particular. Some of our fellows participated in our Collaboration Institute and Anniversary Party this past September in Pittsburgh. So I'm going to stop talking about the overview of the program and get to the fellows themselves. So if each of you could just introduce yourself briefly to our audience, I think I'll pass it to Candid to kick off the introductions, and then we'll dive into the discussion.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and thank you for National Girls Collaborative Project for having me here today. My name is Candid Mack. When I started the fellowship, I was an entrepreneurship counselor for Queens Public Library. I'm an entrepreneurship educator at that time, and throughout the fellowship, at the end, I became the programs and events coordinator for National Girls Collaborative.
Great, I can go next. Hi, everyone. My name is Emma Hagan. I am a program specialist for the UCAR Center for Science Education, which manages exhibits and science outreach for the National Center for Atmospheric Research in Boulder, Colorado. I grew up in Durango, Colorado, and currently live in Denver. So I've been in Colorado this whole time. And before this, I worked for the GLOBE program, which is a citizen science and science education program. And I was thrilled to be an NGCP fellow this year. So thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Hannah Winkler. I am a senior program coordinator for a nonprofit organization called Girl Start. Girl Start is based in Austin, Texas, and our mission is to increase girls' interest in STEM. So this fellowship was super helpful with all the work I do on a day-to-day basis.
Hello, everyone. My name is Arisha Oden, formerly Gore. The joys of getting married and doing the name change process. I am a project manager at McKesson. McKesson is a pharmaceutical distribution center. And this year, as a fellow, I had an opportunity to work with the Texas cohort and to focus on pulling together data.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amy Isaac, and I am a PhD student in computer science at North Carolina State University. I also run our student organization on campus that's focused on CS outreach, and we host Saturday workshops and also like after school programs or elective classes when requested by various schools in our neighborhood. And I have been helping with the If Then project this year.
Hi, everyone.
Oh, yes, please go. Yes.
Sorry, Kata. Hi, everyone. My name is Kaylee Bucor, and I'm the Director of Education at the STEM Center of Excellence with the Girl Scouts of Northeast Texas. And I have the honor and privilege of leading the STEM Center in informal programmatic STEM learning, both for Girl Scouts and for non-Girl Scouts. And we offer STEM workshops on the weekends, STEM family events on the weekends, and then STEM aligned field trip opportunities throughout the week. And over the summer, I had the wonderful privilege of working with the Texas cohort. Not only did I collaborate with Arisha with the data collection very minimally because summer camp was busy, but I had the opportunity to update my job description to include a cultural response to how we provide STEM learning here in North Texas. So that is ongoing work that is being informed by our wonderful program partners, Deloitte and Cospiro here in North Texas. So that movement has just started, and I'm excited to take the learnings from this fellowship and see it to fruition.
Thank you all so much for those introductions. And I also just want to acknowledge Safia Noel, who's also part of our cohort, but not able to attend today. But I just want to acknowledge all of her work working with our Youth Advisory Board and her many contributions during the course of the fellowship. I think we'll get started with our discussion. We have a few questions prepared just to kick us off, but I just encourage anyone in the audience to feel free to type your question in the chat, or shortly you'll have the opportunity to unmute, turn on your video if you'd like, and ask any questions you might have. So our first question is, what is one highlight from your fellowship experience related to the projects you have worked on? And just feel free, whoever would like to begin, unmute and get started.
I can get us started with that question. So one of the projects that I worked on throughout my fellowship was with data analysis on the NGCP Annual Survey. And Hannah and I were the two fellows who worked on that alongside Kata and Brenda. And I think that was a really good experience and really strengthened my skills in data analytics, especially for open-ended response questions, which can be tricky sometimes too. And so this survey was up and running again this year when it was previously running before the pandemic. So I think it was really crucial for this information to be analyzed from before the pandemic to now, to be able to compare any differences in that. And as a part of that, I also traveled to the NGCP Collaboration Institute in Pittsburgh, which Kata had previously mentioned. And so my highlight is that I got to present at the Collaboration Institute for some of that data. alongside Kata and Brenda. So it helped my public speaking skills and my data Linux skills, and also focused on what gender and STEM looks like for people in the NGCP community at the moment.
Yeah, working on that project with Emma, Kata, and Brenda was great. I would say a highlight of this program was absolutely getting to travel to Pennsylvania. That was super cool to meet everyone in person. And another project I worked on that I'd love to tell y'all more about is some exemplary practices pages on the NGCP's website. They have some really great resources if you're looking for, research-backed articles about why what we're doing related to STEM equity is important, if you want to learn more about those topics. Two that I specifically updated were the Access and Equity Exemplary Practices page and the Engaging Girls in STEM Exemplary Practices page. And this involved me getting to read through a bunch of the articles that were already on these pages, and they're just like a wealth of information. I knew what I was doing related to girls in STEM at Girl Start was important, but I had never really dug deep into the research behind why it's important. And so if that's of interest to you at all too, I would highly recommend that you check out those exemplary practices pages. There's a lot of good info, research articles, and then also really great webinars that you can listen to as well.
I can go next and throw on a data analytics kick. As I have briefly mentioned, my project was focusing on the data around Texas. So I know there is the Women and Girls in STEM that NGCP has put out that report. So I tried to model that report for the state of Texas. And it was very fun and hard trying to locate data within Texas, because I found out that after searching numerous databases, reports, articles, that Texas doesn't really have a lot of data around intersectionality. So there's not a lot of data around women and STEM, it's just STEM in general. And then on top of that, the data lags a couple of years. So we don't keep up to date quite a bit on our statistics related to STEM, let alone women in STEM. So I think that was kind of a highlight, just trying to dig into the data around Texas and kind of how they compare to the rest of the US. And another special shout out, so I actually did get to meet Kaylee in person over the summer. My company, McKesson, did team up with the Girl Scouts of North Texas, and it was actually fun seeing her in person. Walking in, I'm going, are you Kaylee? And just kind of from there, getting a tour of their center, which if you ever come to North Texas, do check them out.
I'm going to take in that opportunity to segue. Thank you. So Kaylee, I'm with the Girl Scouts of Northeast Texas, and it was so fun getting to meet someone from my fellowship. It was wonderful having Alricia here, and McKesson is a great supporter of our STEM destination camp. So just big shout out to that. So I had an opportunity to work with Trisha Berry on just trying to identify what a culturally responsive rubric looks like. And y'all, there are a lot of different ways to cut that, because there's a lot of different perspectives, right? So the work that I'm working on and will continue to work on is, what does that response look like, that rubric look like here in North Texas for Girl Scouts? So Girl Scouts, if you're familiar with our programming, we have very distinct girl processes, and part of our cultural movement right now is to put a special lens on equity, diversity, inclusion, and access. So we are trying to serve our community first and foremost, and then serve the larger Metroplex. We serve 32 counties, almost 19,000 Girl Scouts, which is a lot of STEM opportunities, right? So the first thing that we are aiming to do is to figure out how culturally aware we are as an organization. And that is a 9-month process that we are currently in. So it's slow work, it's intentional work, but change worth making didn't happen overnight. So I'm just excited to continuously be in this space.
For me, I actually think that the highlight of my project was the what I was working with in general being the if then project. As my project required me to look at all the resources and be like, what's actually here, and just kind of taking a step to take stock of that. And so for me, I was like vaguely familiar with the if then project, but to like actually look at like all the offerings that are there, and see the cool stories of all these amazing women who are doing amazing things in STEM, and thinking in the back of my mind, how can I also just like use some of these resources in my future work, I think was really one of my highlights. And then, as everyone has said, not directly tied to the project, but just getting to meet and work with all the rest of the great folks at NGCP and the other fellows was also great.
Thank you all so much for sharing that. You all have been working on so many projects, so I'll also just take this time to say we are so appreciative. The links to the resources that Hannah updated are in the chat, so I do encourage everyone to check those out. Just a shout out for that in particular. I think we'll go forward with our next question, although we also have a few questions in the chat that we can get to as well. So our trainings covered topics centered on gender equity in STEM, including cultural responsiveness, supporting girls' positive STEM identity development, and integrating role models into STEM learning. How have you, or how do you plan to use those learnings in your own work? And a few of you touched on this already, but I just wanted to give anyone else who would like to share on that an opportunity.
So one of the papers that we read that stood out to me kind of laid out an understanding of science identity and put it into 3 dimensions of competence, performance, and recognition. And so for that, its competence is just like actually knowing and understanding science, which I think is maybe the first thing I think of, or the base level that I would have thought of when I was like thinking about how do you know if someone has a science identity, they know science. But then the 2 that I think were really important and really made me think were the idea that like the other 2 are both performance. So actually getting the opportunities to use those skills and show other people that you're actually competent and that you can do science. And then further beyond that, that element of recognition as the 3rd dimension, where both you recognize yourself as a science person, but crucially, other people also recognize you as a science person. And so one of the quotes that really stood out to me is that an aspiring scientist relies on the judgment and invitation of practicing scientists throughout every phase of the educational and career process. So just really hammering home the idea of how much recognition and giving students the chance to actually do meaningful things with the science knowledge that they're learning can be crucial to actually helping them develop that science identity and want to go into STEM and feel like they actually belong. And so for me, just keeping that in mind as I am working towards developing programs, that it's not enough that they just get to learn a thing. They actually have to experience using that knowledge and then get recognized for it. And so like the idea that like building every program so there's a chance not only to learn the information, but to use it, and then also to get positive feedback, both from the people in charge, from their peers, potentially even from the community, depending on the program. I think thinking of programs that in that kind of format that it needs to have all 3 of those things, I think helped me and is something that I'll be using moving forward.
To piggyback off of Amy well said, that was definitely something that resonated with me throughout our learnings and our webinars and all the papers that we read. The second thing that really stood out is when we lose youth in their STEM identification journey in their education. 6th grade seems to be a reoccurring theme of when girls just dip out of STEM knowledge or confidence or competence, or they don't have someone that believes in them. They don't have a chance to actually see it and then be it. So for me in North Texas with the Girl Scouts, that signifies that we need to make some dramatic changes to programming that we offer specifically to, in Girl Scout lingo, our cadets, which is grades 6th, 7th, and 8th. But it's going to be a tiered approach, right? Because we don't want to lose them at the end of 5th grade. We want to still hold their attention in 5th grade throughout the summer of, you know, that transition period into middle school. So not only giving them a chance to practice and to be in that scientific space and to be accepted, but to be invited to practice it. So then after 6th grade, what does that pipeline look like? What jobs or opportunities or internships or careers could they participate in? What volunteer opportunities? So it's very much, you know, like a stepping stone, and how do we alter our programming to offer something like that?
Kind of similar in the same vein, something that Girl Start uses in a lot of our programming is bringing in role models and mentors to talk to our program participants. And, you know, it's normally a really positive experience. And one of our trainings that we had was about the effect of mentors and role models in shaping STEM identity. And I hadn't really thought too much about how powerful that experience can potentially be for these kids in like 4th through 8th grade. That's our target age range. And also that it's important that the role models are quality and have a positive interaction with the girls. So I think I'm going to share an article in the chat too. It was one of my favorite ones we read. And it talks about how these role models should be successful in their field, but they shouldn't be like insanely successful, or they should be successful, but they should have an attainable level of success. Like the girls can see themselves getting to that someday and seeing the steps that they can take to reach that level of success. They should prioritize traditionally underrepresented groups when choosing role models, especially if there are only a few role models that they're going to be highlighting. And they should talk about their lives and how they're just regular people. So a lot of tools that we learned during that training, I'm hoping that Girl Start can incorporate into trainings that we give our role models before they interact with the kids. So not exactly sure what that looks like yet, but I know it's something that Girl Start needs to implement and make sure that the guest speakers that we're bringing in, these women in STEM, they're directly interacting with our participants, are having a positive impact on their STEM identity.
Thank you all so much for sharing some of your learnings. I really enjoy hearing about how you plan to integrate what you've learned on STEM identity and role models and those other gender equitable and culturally responsive practices. So our kind of final prepared question that is we're hoping you all could share a practical tip or a resource with our audience. Some of you have already done that in the chat, but of course we welcome more. It doesn't have to be a link. It could be something a little bit more general related to your learnings. But yeah, we'd love to hear from you all a practical tip, resource, or some general advice for our audience.
I'm going to repeat something that we discussed a bit at our first training, which is the idea that you can use icebreakers as a really good tool if you're going to be having like a session that really needs a lot of conversation, as a way to help people promote discussion later on in the workshop, right? It very much is like the idea of an icebreaker, and that once you get people talking, hopefully they will continue to talk. And so we actually started all of our trainings with an icebreaker, and I think that was a really small but actionable thing to take with us. And I'm glad that everyone modeled that for us.
I think a piece of information that is just general that would help is creating a safe space for learning, and a safe space is going to look different depending on the group of youth that you are working with. I in a past life, I was an interpreter, and they always talk about meeting Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So in a way, like, you have to make sure that your participants feel safe, that they have a drink, they know where the bathroom is, they know where the exit is, like they're not staring into the sun kind of thing. So whatever the sun is in your applicable fields, like, make sure your kids aren't blinded by it. And you can just figure out a way to provide a safe, quality programmatic space for them to encourage learning, for them to feel like they can be vulnerable in spaces and try something new, and what that perseverance looks like when they don't get it right the first time. So that safe space is, for me, in addition to the icebreaker, Amy, because I love those too. But a safe space is the starting point for me when teaching informally STEM education.
So my practical tip would be, so I worked on the youth advisory board during my fellowship. So our age range was freshman to senior year. And one thing that I learned, I had to give myself this own tip, is to listen actively. Because when I came in, I had these slides and I was ready to teach what I wanted to teach. And then I had to ask them, how do you like to learn? And then also ask them, like, what is going on throughout your day? Because I'm so far removed from high school that I don't know what's going on in their current time. So for the youth advisory board, before we got into any lessons, it was like, how was your day? What's going on in school? I forgot about the pressures of SATs and filling out college applications. And, and this group is such an exceptional group where they're filling out college applications their junior year so they can get early admissions. So it was just more of understanding what they're going on in their mind and just listening to them and taking in what they said. And then you might have to restructure how you have to teach, because one day I was teaching with slides, and that same night I was like, okay, you don't want slides? I heard you. I'm just going to speak and just have a conversation. And then once I did that, every other meeting, we had monthly meetings, it was no slides. It was just me having a conversation about networking, me having a conversation about setting goals, and how having a structure to execute your goals can help them in the long run. Safi is not here, but she had a conversation about how to build a career in STEM, because those are some of their questions, like, how do I get in the door? And so we just had to, instead of saying this is what we want to do, we had to actively listen and say, what do you want us to speak about? So my practical advice is, whether you're with kids or adults, just to listen and then, respond.
And I have a resource as well. And I will say, sorry, everyone, I've been having tech issues, so I've been dropping out enough, but I'm still here. So from my space, one of the things that I've been working on internally with my program is hopefully getting some of our scientist role models certified. And so part of that is the role models that we have here at NCAR. We call them the NCAR wizards, to make them a little bit more approachable. And they've never received any sort of role model training or in any official capacity. That is, they've worked for years with our education team to be a role model for students. And so me coming into this program, I'm new in this program relatively, and something that I've been talking about with my team is maybe even getting those people some sort of training or certification. And so when I was at the Collaboration Institute, one of the people there shared the Role Models Matter training by TechBridge Girls. And so that's one that I have proposed to my team, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to implement for those wizards and even for our educators as well. And thanks, Amanda, for putting that in the chat. So I think that that's a great resource if you're looking for something to give you a certification on the role model side.
Another similar resource that I think has been around for quite a long time is put out by SciGirls. It's called the SciGirl Strategies. It's there's like a one-pager that Girl Start prints out for all of our program leaders for every single program we do. It's 6 strategies for how to best engage with girls. And then there's also a much longer PDF resource that is multiple pages that you could also send out. So if you have anyone in your organization that's like, can you help me understand how to better relate with girls and inspire girls in STEM, these SciGirl strategies, and they've been updated over the years, of course, but they're just really a great foundation for how to more effectively engage with girls in STEM and how to make sure that you're having positive interactions and inspiring them in STEM rather than making STEM seem like something that's scary and not something they can do. So I'd highly recommend the SciGirl strategies for any sort of girls in STEM programming that you're doing.
And I'll pipe back in just to feed off of that. One of my favorite research articles that we read was actually a literature review that included an analysis of the SciGirl strategies. And that paper was titled "A Summary of Effective Gender Equitable Teaching Practices in Informal STEM Education Spaces" by Dr. Roxanne Hughes. So if you're looking for more research into some of these strategies, I definitely recommend that literature review as well.
Thank you all so much for sharing all those resources and all those ways where you're planning to or have already applied those learnings to your work. I loved hearing about how you enjoyed the icebreakers during training, really fostering that collaboration and the importance of getting to know the youth that you're working with and creating safe spaces. It was great to hear kind of a summary of a lot of those strategies that we talk about and aim to apply to our work. There were a couple questions that came through the chat. One is from Adrian, and the question is, who is accessing this data? Industry, education? You can feel free to jump in here, Adrian, but I would kind of just open it up to anyone who would like to respond to it, to think about the projects you've worked on related to data or research more broadly, thinking about that target audience or anything kind of related to that piece.
I'm pretty sure. So this was the guidance I was given when updating the exemplary practices pages, especially on NGCP's website. It's a lot of informal educators, from what I understand, who are going to those pages. So it's not necessarily, they're like, find research articles that are really strong and based on research, but they're also accessible for people that aren't like full-time researchers. So I believe those pages are primarily accessed by informal educators.
Yeah, thanks for providing that clarification, Hannah. Yeah, those exemplary practice pages and the majority of our resources, the target would be those more informal educators. Although, some of our reports, and Alicia, you can jump in here if you would like, but I know for the national level report we produced on the state of girls and women in STEM. Again, that's for our educators, but it does cover a really high level summary of higher education and the STEM workforce related to women's underrepresentation in STEM fields. So while the audience is primarily informal educators, we do look at the workforce and higher education in terms of the statistics. And there was another question actually that came in the chat from Amanda. So as your time in the anniversary fellowship program is wrapping up, she's curious, what would you do to continue your work if you had another year in the program? Putting everyone on the spot here.
Yeah, if people give me another year in the program, I'd definitely take it. I don't I think the project that I have been working on, it is done to some degree, right? It's not a data set that is growing or expanding currently. So like you analyze what's in it, you won't analyze it again. But I think I'd be interested potentially in looking at like user data for like the FabFems database and seeing like who is actually volunteering, who is actually using it and requesting. Though, and just like looking at that breakdown a bit, as well as after hearing what some of the other fellows have been doing, you know, I would love potentially to also help write some briefs on existing research and add to like NGCP's website about like the resources, kind of like how Hannah did. Not gonna lie. But I think there's always more work that can be done, and I would be excited to continue to do it.
Funny that you mentioned both of those, Amy, because I agree. Those are the two things that came to mind for me as well. Is I think data analysis on FabFems would be really interesting, and also the exemplary practices that Hannah worked on. So it's really funny that you mentioned that because I had the same thought.
That was a really great curveball question, Amanda. If I had another year after the fellowship, I would be on the youth advisory board still, but I think I would want to dabble into like the data side of it, just to learn more. Because hearing like Amy and Emma, speak, and hearing everyone speaking about like all the research they've done and stuff that they found out, it interests me in seeing like how they came across this summary and just how they got their information and their results. So for me, that was one thing I would do if I can continue it. I'll see if I can balance being on two different projects.
I think I would. Oh, go ahead, Kaylee.
No, you go ahead.
I was like, I would enjoy the youth advisory board. I think it was nice that like you guys got to meet with the actual students and kind of hear their viewpoints. So I would probably shift to that. And also, I don't know, more about like the data with Texas, maybe like search more. I mean, there was kind of a limited view I had to see if there's really any more. And I think maybe next level would be like, it would be awesome to meet with people. I don't know who to really, share the data.
I inadvertently signed myself up for like a 5-year course on continuing the work for culturally responsive STEM learning, just because of the nature of my position and where Girl Scouts of Northeast Texas is moving from a cultural value perspective. So I am doing the work for the foreseeable future and continuing it. So it's just a great foundational knowledge base that I'm excited to grow and continue to learn from and develop for my organization.
And I'm going to jump back in and say that if you follow NGCP on social media or on their newsletter, you may have seen that they were recently awarded the Bright program. And so I would love to help out with the Bright program as well. Congrats, Kata.
Thank you all for sharing. I love hearing the responses to that question, and thanks for the question, Amanda. It's great to hear your passion for the work you've been working on over the last 9 months, and that you're interested to continue that work or explore things more deeply. So I really appreciate hearing that. I think we're getting close to the end of our time, so I'm probably going to pass it back to Amanda now. And I just wanted to say again, thank you all so much for sharing. It was just so great to hear your advice and your experience and all those resources and learnings from the program.
Thank you, Kata, and thank you once again to all of the fellows. I was here taking notes on all of the tips and the resources that you were sharing, and I had a great time chatting with everyone in the chat, all the questions you were asking. It was really amazing to see how the work you've done this past year is sparking all of our excitement and our curiosity and our interest in moving forward on this topic of equity in STEM. So thank you so much for taking the time to share today. I would love to invite you all to some of our other upcoming webinars. If you enjoyed this one, I hope you'll enjoy the two that we have planned on National STEM Day next week. We have two almost back-to-back webinars. The first one is called The Genius of Play and STEAM, and that one is in collaboration with the Toy Association, and we'll be sharing lots of great young kid-friendly resources around STEM and STEAM learning. And then later that day, we have the Girls STEAM Ahead with NASA Exemplary Practices webinar in celebration of National STEAM Day. So if you're interested in joining either of these events, I think Kata will put the link in the chat, or you can get it on our events page of our NGCP website. And if you have any questions, thoughts, or suggestions on these webinars, feel free to contact me. My email is here on the screen. And I want to thank you all once again, all the speakers, to Kata for facilitating this great panel discussion, and all of the attendees for asking such great questions and being so active in the chat. We will be saving the recording to this webinar, all of the slides, all of the resources that were shared in the chat, so you'll have access to them. And after this event is closed, a survey will pop up on screen. We'll also put that link in the chat for you. We'd love for you to take a moment of your time to share your thoughts on how this webinar was, what you learned, and what you'd like to see from us in the future. Thank you so much once again, and I really hope you all enjoy your day. Thank you so much.